I want to talk about a police shooting in my Florida town. Florida is Florida. That just happened over the weekend. The man who was shot and killed by Broward County Police sheriff's deputies, his name was Gregory Frazier. His picture is on your screen now. Gregory Frazier was shot while sitting in his backyard eating chicken wings, eating takeout. His sister called the police because of a domestic, she was afraid. She called the sheriff's deputy because she was afraid for her daughter. Frazier got into an altercation with his niece, and because his sister was afraid, she called the Broward sheriff's deputy. The deputies approached him and told him 3 times to get on the ground. Frazier allegedly said, "Leave me alone." Each time they said, "Leave me alone." And then one of the sheriff's deputies pulled the trigger, and then a second deputy pulled the trigger and killed him. They handcuffed him, and once they realized he was unconscious, they uncuffed him and performed CPR. He later died. Frazier was 56 years old. This took place in Pompano Beach, which is right around the matter of fact, I probably know where he got the chicken wings from. More than likely it's from Omar's on the corner there. But this is a very, so allegedly he had a knife, and the knife that he had was a kitchen knife, and that is now being used as the justification for the shooting. It's difficult for this to fly, the sniff test, because many people eat food with knives. And because he was sitting down, he was apparently, if I'm not mistaken, shot in the back of the head and killed on the scene. So there have been some rallies and protests in Pompano Beach, Florida. These videos that you can see online on YouTube and Twitter, Facebook and Twitter rather, of people in the community gathering together, chanting Black Lives Matter. And of course, this is following the same exact pattern we see with everything else. The lines are drawn, conclusions have already been made. And because Frazier had a kitchen knife eating chicken, all of a sudden that was a threat to the police officers. Now, I don't have all the details other than what I've given you at this point. So it maybe there's going to be a video that comes out that shows Gregory Frazier lunging at the police from behind with the kitchen knife. But suffice it to say, this is just a continuation and an extension of this fear. This two things: this fear with which police officers approach black people, and then the second thing is the willingness to use a level of force that is in many occasions not necessary. Because, I mean, unless Mr. Frazier just turned into, and this is literally what people see and assume, right? Because they have to find a way to justify this. And this is what pisses me off the most, is that in order for them to justify every incident that happens with a black person and a police officer, they automatically assume that someone like Frazier turns into this monster who is so terrifying and such a threat to these heroic and loving police officers that they had no choice but to shoot him because Frazier had a knife. Never mind he was sitting there eating chicken. Frazier had a knife. And because he had a knife, all of a sudden they paint a picture in their mind of this hulking barbarian that had to be put down by the heroic police officers. And they believe this time after time and incident after incident, no matter what a person was holding or whether or not they were holding anything at all. They make the assumption that this black man or this black woman posed an imminent threat that required deadly force. So it's never in. Ask these people online, ask these people who are in your neighborhood, who are on your jobs. It's never a case that they would ever believe that the police officer was wrong. They always will make the person, the black person, the person who is dead, they will make them out to be some type of King Kong, Godzilla, behemoth of a beast, because in their minds, that's the only way they could justify it. And it becomes this feedback loop, right? Now they believe this. And so now police officers approach a scene with this type of bias in their mind already, with this unjustified fear of blackness. And they resort to a level of force that is completely unnecessary. In many, many cases, not in all cases, but in far too many cases, they have rushed into the scene and instantly they see a young person as much older than what they are because they're black. There's social sciences that bears that out. There's an automatic assumption of a level of maturity or of being older once you're black than if you were white. That's how they saw 12-year-old Tamir Rice, and they called it in as though he was 19. So they automatically see you as older. They automatically see you as more threatening. And then they automatically make this conclusion that you are a threat to their safety. And they pull their gun and they shoot you and kill you. But we have no reason to protest. We have no reason. We have no reason whatsoever to protest. We have no reason to complain. We have no reason to sit down on the Star Spangled Banner and sit down on the Pledge of Allegiance, because if there's anything wrong in America, the only thing wrong in America is with people who complain about America. And if there's anything wrong in the black community, it's 100% the black community, never the structural problems that have been baked into the system against the black community. It's always a black person's fault. He didn't work hard enough. She didn't have enough morals. Her morality was questionable, or she was too loud and she shouldn't have talked back, or he shouldn't have had a toy gun. She shouldn't have asserted her humanity. He should not have had been walking around. He should have complied. There's always something more that a black person has to do to not warrant their own execution. Never will it be the case that we should look at the structural problems. Never, ever. I mean, ever. There is not a single case that some of these people can look at and say that it was the cops' wrongdoing. Not even with Walter Scott, I believe North Carolina or South Carolina. Walter Scott getting shot in the back. You have people who try to justify that and say, well, he shouldn't have run. And because he ran, then he was justified for getting shot. The cop was justified shooting him. There are people who make this argument, and not just random run-of-the-mill, token, ignorant, troll people. There are people in positions of power who will bend over and contort themselves in ungodly positions so that they can justify the actions of every single police officer against black people. So I'll be speaking later on this week. I'll be reaching out to some colleagues I have in Pompano Beach, and I'll have them on the show so we can talk a little bit more about the protests that are going on down there. And we'll bring you an update of what's happening with the shooting death of Gregory Frazier.